let's bring in live in the studio the Ukrainian ambassador to Australia, Vasyl Myroshnychenko. Ambassador, thanks for your time. This moment and this attack, which has hit Polish territory, it's dominating those conversations at the G20, dominating the focus internationally because of the risk, I guess, that NATO could be drawn into this conflict along with your compatriots.
Look, of course, it's top news right now for the right reason, because Russians have been targeting Ukraine for the past 8 months, and they've been targeting the Lviv region, which is next door to Poland. Even previously, they've hit targets which were too close to the border, and most likely this was one of those stray missiles which could have come there. Was it done deliberately, or it was just an accident? We don't really know. And of course, Polish government will have to provide more information about what exactly happened, where this missile from, what's the origin of it. But what's important is that for NATO countries to sit down and decide how they respond to it. And I think at this stage, the best response would be to actually provide more assistance to Ukraine.
Is there any facility around there, Ukrainian facility or military capacity that they might have been targeting?
No, but well, of course. I mean, we have a big military base out there in Yavoriv, which is about 20 kilometers from the Polish border, and Russians have sent their missiles there twice already, back in the spring of this year, European spring of this year. And but you know, it could have been. It's only 10 kilometers from the border, so it could be anything. But look. Now, what's important, we understand that direct confrontation between NATO and Russia is impossible. So probably the most rational response to this would be to step up its assistance to Ukraine, to provide more modern air defense systems, to provide tanks, to provide long-range missiles, and eventually to provide jets, because this is what we need to restore Ukraine's sovereignty. This is what we need to win the war and come back to peace. And I think it will be in the interest of everybody, and especially of Europe, that this war is over as soon as possible.
Where this comes in the broader conflict, for our viewers who aren't across all the detail of where things are at, the Ukrainian forces have pushed back Russia well and truly from some key areas and cities, including Kherson recently.
Yes.
This is a moment heading into winter where Ukraine has got the upper hand.
Absolutely. The recent liberation of Kherson, which was the only center in the region that was controlled by Russia for the past 8 months. Even Russia has announced that it's now part of Russia, but not anymore. It's a big military and political victory for us. There was a great deal of rejoicing over the weekend in Kherson and liberation of Kherson. And as a response to that, Russians have sent over 100 missiles overnight by targeting our critical civilian infrastructure, power generation, heating stations, water systems. And now 7 million Ukrainians don't have access to electricity, others don't have water and heating. And this makes it extremely difficult for us. It's actually going to cause another wave of refugees into the EU, many more internally displaced people. This is putting a great deal of pressure on the Ukrainian civilians. And I think that there was a very good meeting which took place between Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and Foreign Minister Kuleba on the sidelines of the ASEAN summit in Cambodia. And I'm thankful that Prime Minister could find time for that meeting, and they discussed his energy needs. And Australia sent some coal back in earlier this year. We need more of the Australian coal. We need your help with power generators. We need your help with transmission systems.
So that's your number one request right now heading into winter. You
absolutely. We need energy support. And I think coal would be the one that would be there on the top of the list. We understand it takes time before it reaches, but if the decision is made, it could reach Ukraine in midwinter. This is the time where we'll need it most.
Do you feel that this success on the battlefield has also emboldened the allies in Europe, NATO and others to provide more support to you?
Well, it actually emboldened Putin to hit our civilian infrastructure and to target civilians. This is what's happening.
Out of desperation.
Out of desperation, but it should serve as an inspiration for our partners and allies to provide more assistance to Ukraine, because our victories in Kharkiv region, our victories in the south, in Kherson, demonstrate that Ukrainian military is highly capable. And we can liberate the land. We just need the right tools. We need the right weapons. And we are out there defending European security and peace. And all we need their support. And we need the support of Australia to be continued.
I spoke to the Foreign Minister, Penny Wong, a bit earlier in the program. She says that these ongoing attacks show and continue to show how diminished Russia is now, and that Putin is increasingly proving that. That might be the case, but in the meantime, there's a lot of hardship for your people, isn't there?
It is. And, hitting civilians and their infrastructure is a war crime in itself, and Russia will be held accountable for that. Russia will have to pay for it. And we already have voted on a convention, on a resolution in the UN several days ago, which actually creates a mechanism on how we can impose and make Russia pay for all those damages. But apparently they are desperate. They can't do anything on the battlefield, and what they do, they hit the civilians.
Is there any intelligence that you might have or view within Ukraine as to what the Russian position is going forward? Because obviously Putin, the dictator, but there's been some talk about internal disquiet. Is that your understanding?
Well, there are different numerous reports on the situation in Russia. However, we don't really have a comprehensive assessment of the situation and how grave discontent is. And of course, as it is a dictatorship, authoritarian power, there are so many different ways how they can quell that opposition or whatever, internal opposition. People walk out of the windows, people fall asleep and never wake up, and it happens all the time in Russia, especially these days.
It certainly does. And just finally, you spoke about the energy requirements. Is there anything else that Ukraine needs from Australia right now? We know about the Bushmasters. They've helped on the battlefield. Is there anything else that you need?
Look,
right now?
energy support is great. Australia has been out there punching above its weight, supporting us. The M113 armored personnel carriers, 28 of those, half of those were delivered, others are coming as well. Important because winter is coming and we need APCs on tracks. As you know, Bushmasters also been instrumental. But look...
Mr. Albanese spoke to your foreign minister about those energy needs. You mentioned that earlier. Has he given any indication that Australia will provide more supplies?
Look, I think what's needed is for Prime Minister to come back to Australia, and I think any decision on Ukraine's assistance requires a cabinet meeting and a cabinet decision.
It's going to happen soon, though.
Yeah, I really hope that more support could be coming. We appreciate the military support, we appreciate energy support. Look, I wish we didn't have to ask for it, but the situation is so dire. And today I tweeted, I said, I wish Australia were our neighbor, but unfortunately we have Russia as a neighbor, and that's a fact.
Yeah, exactly. But we will stay in touch, and hopefully that coal and energy support can be forthcoming sooner rather than later, heading into a very cold winter. I appreciate your time, Ambassador. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Kieran.
We'll stay in touch.